Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. What initially attracted you, to the broadcasting industry?
I think a lot of it is the feeling of having something to say and wanting to stand up and say it. An old boss of mine used to point out that if you're a performer, if you're a storyteller, you will literally stand on a street corner, on a box, on the floor, whatever it is, and tell stories over and over and over again. Like there is something inside a lot of us that just has this feeling that we got to go out and share what we know.
Totally agree.
When somebody can actually come along and pay you to do it, that's always kind of a really nice surprise when you can actually turn it into a living. And that is not easy to do. And there's very few jobs in the world to this day where people actually 100% make a living off of it.
Wow. And podcasting, what do you prefer? From being live on a microphone in the mornings or in the afternoons or whatnot to being alone in a studio or with somebody else podcasting.
Well, you think about where radio is. Like radio, for the most part, was a couple of us in the studio from 6 in the morning till 9 in the morning, 5 to 10, whatever the hours are that somebody does. In the era of radio at the moment, there's no operators, there's no producers. It's just kind of a group of individuals that come together and do a show. So you're very much talking to each other as you do it. There is something wonderful about being live. I don't particularly like being recorded. Like I don't like the thought of not being able to talk about what is exactly happening at this moment. One of the best things about radio was and still is the immediacy of it. If something is happening in the city, like what radio does better than any other medium has really ever figured out is the ability to talk about it right now as it happens and to share that with, I don't know, pick a number, 10,000, 100,000 people who are listening to it. And I just love being able to talk about current events in that way. Podcasting doesn't do that. I find whenever I make a podcast, I always have the evergreen thought in my head. Whatever it is we're going to have to talk about should be relevant today, should be relevant a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. And we have even seen this on podcasts, right? Where a lot of times something that was recorded months and months and months ago suddenly, for whatever reason, goes viral and becomes a big thing. What was it that they did that made it viral at that moment? Who knows? It clicked and it went in. So podcasting has definitely a different beast to it. And I just prefer the immediacy of being live.
Wow. And the beast, okay, the viewership, there's, an absolute difference between radio and podcasting. Do you think radio is, in a sense, dying?
Yes. Yeah. It's not so much that radio is dying. I think that radio peaked. Radio peaked a couple of years ago. I don't think they're different beasts at all. This sort of a conversation that we are doing and then sharing with other people. Radio's done this for 150 years at this point? We're not doing anything new. The method that we are using to distribute the conversation has changed. You think about some of the classic radio that the CBC, for example, has done for literally decades. A lot of it is just some great conversations. That's entirely what their morning shows or in their afternoon shows, their daytime shows are based on, is sometimes some very long form conversations with individuals that they take and share across the country. So we've maybe tweaked this a little bit in that it's now recorded, it's now on demand, as opposed to something that you had to be there to hear at that particular moment in time. But there's nothing new with what we're doing.
And you've been doing this for how long now?
I first started when I was 15.
Wow. And
I'm 53 at the moment. So in some sort of way, there was always a feeling of wanting to get out there and do something. Like you're saying, to be a storyteller, even if it's standing on a street corner, whether you get paid for it or not becomes irrelevant. But you have something that you want to say. And you have to admit, you sort of like the limelight of it. Like, you like the fact that people are listening to what you're saying. There's a high to that. And you also just sort of like to figure out exactly how it is you're going to give back in the world. There are a lot of people out there who are teachers or construction workers or whatever it is they do, accountants and doctors and lawyers and airline pilots, and I'm none of that stuff. So you've always got to find your place in the world.
Through all those years of broadcasting, have you met anybody that blew your mind, a really interesting connection?
You do meet a couple of people like along the way. You know, the first time you met Justin Trudeau, like, and the guy actually comes into the studio and sort of stands there, and you realize how tall he is. And so with so many politicians, you start to understand that they are completely different people in person than you expect them to be, because there's always this certain way that other people talk about them. You know, somebody, and you see this in the news all the time, where, you know, this is what actually happened, but this is what really happened. And then when you're actually in the room where it really, yes, but then when you're in the room when it happened, you go, no, that's not the way that happened at all. Like, I was in the room, and that's not the way that it went down. So there's a lot of these individuals with politicians who you think you know what you're going to get into, and then all of a sudden they are completely different people. On the show we had Rick Mercer, you know, classic Canadian comedian, on many times.
Newfie.
And yes, and you start to realize when you hang out with him, like, he's just in this to have some fun as well, which is sort of one of the best things about a lot of these people. So it's those individuals I think are true surprises.
Wow. And you do really get a high from it, honestly. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, it does feel really good, man. That rush of like, oh my God, like, I don't know, maybe there's somebody listening somewhere. You know what I mean?
Have you been recognized yet?
Yeah, at the gym for sure, because I go there every day. So of course.
Yeah. So your boys are listening all
My
the time.
boys are listening.
Hey boys. Yeah.
Hey boys.
Yeah. Hi, how's it going?
My girl's listening for sure.
Oh,
my number
good.
one supporter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's really important, man, for what you do, because sometimes the views aren't there. But hey, fuck it, man. Consistency.
Yes, exactly. It is funny when you do get noticed at these things, because like you
must be noticed. You get noticed all the time.
You get noticed, and it's you're never entirely sure. Like a buddy of mine, he noticed me at the gym, and the way I tell the story, I was naked and changing at the time of the change room. But he literally did the, "Are you David Schellenberg?" And it's like, yeah. And it was just because he happened to have seen something and gone and looked up. So he called me out. At least I will say this, when I was naked. Whether I was not, is irrelevant, but it makes a good story. But sometimes you'll be in the grocery store and you'll be, you know, looking through the oranges, trying to find the good oranges, and there'll be somebody staring at you, and you're trying to figure out, are you looking at me because you recognize me, or do you want me to get the hell out of the way so you can find some oranges?
Or you really like oranges.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See, so you never really know sometimes what's going on. You ready to see what this wine is?
Fuck yeah, let's go.
So one of the things that we did on the radio for years and years and years was a booze segment of sorts.
Of course.
And yeah, everybody does a booze segment. It's easy to do. And you start to realize that it's very normal to have somebody come on and talk about alcohol in some way. And along the way, we started to figure out that booze is one thing, but food and booze is even better. And then he saw that a whole lot of segments that when people do that, it's really pretentious as possible, and they'll talk about something really expensive paired with something really expensive for food that nobody makes. So we started to think, well, what if you just sort of took normal, easy to find wines and paired that with normal, easy to find foods, and then all of a sudden you've got
the
something.
Big Mac.
Hence the Big Mac on a Tuesday night.
Big Mac.
The Big Mac. Yes, there's a McDonald's right around the corner from here that I stopped and got Big Macs on the way.
Yeah.
And I specifically ordered 2 Big Macs.
Yeah.
Didn't think to look in the bag, because how can McDonald's screw this up?
How can McDonald's screw this up, right?
And there is,
oh boy, they did.
Then there is only 1 Big Mac in the bag. But it's the grand
inflation,
Big Mac.
man.
So it's a
Inflation.
Big Mac. It's a Big Mac.
It is.
So we'll be fine.
Hell yeah.
So one of the best ways that we've ever done this segment was what we called fast food fine wine. So we're taking, in this particular case, 2 very pretentious French wines and pairing them with the Big Mac. So there are some French people who are not going to be at all happy with this.
Oh no, for sure.
So which one do you think? You want to do the Ventoux or do you want to do the Bordeaux?
I go by look.
Okay.
Because I don't really know wine that much, so I go by logo.
Okay.
The one with the beige logo looks pretty nice. It looks
This
almost like royalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It looks like Napoleon's stash.
Excellent. So you picked the cheaper of the 2.
Of course I did. Thank you, sir.
Now, one of the fun things about doing these sort of bits is they don't always work.
Well, whatever. Go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Flow like water, or
Exactly.
flow like Bordeaux.
Bordeaux. No, Ventoux.
Ventoux. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll try the Ventoux, provided it opens. And it's kind of fun with these segments. Like, if you look at some of the other podcasts that I've got, there's one that's been posted as well. Here, I'll just give you a ball.
Yeah, good idea.
Where we actually just did a segment where we paired rosé with chicken wings.
Ooh.
And another one where we paired, what was it? It was bubbly of some sort.
Okay.
With Ripple's potato chips, Pringles potato chips. Huh. So there's a lot of this stuff out there that actually works really well.
Rosé with chicken wings.
Rosé with chicken wings.
Huh.
And I always find personally, after doing these segments for so long, rosé is a great wine for turkey.
Really?
Yeah.